Hello, I'm Josh Wright, and I'm an artist based in South London, and I'm currently occupying a space in Catford with Hypha Studios. As part of the project, I've been given the opportunity to interview industry professionals. So today I'm talking to Jane Bhoyroo and Ella Cronk from Yorkshire Sculpture International. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thanks so much for agreeing to this chat. And I'll start by giving a quick overview of my project with Hypha, and then we can get on to some questions. So in January of this year, I was given a space by Hypha Studios. They selected my proposal to program a kind of a large-scale exhibition of sculpture in what was formerly a Peacocks retail space on Rushy Green, just off Catford High Street. And the exhibition is going to be called Lost in a Just-in-Time Supply Chain, and is responding to the idea of the construction site, a space very much in flux with each artist in their own way taking inspiration from the sort of physical and conceptual landscape of the city, and a lot of the artists are using construction material in their work, as well as waste material and kind of salvaged household objects. The exhibition is going to open on the 28th of April from 6 till 9 p.m. and is open to all. So please do come if you can. Great. So now on to the questions. Let's start with Jane. Jane, so you are curator and producer at Yorkshire Sculpture International. Perhaps you could start by telling us a bit about the work of Yorkshire Sculpture International.
Yes, thanks a lot. Really lovely of you to invite us to be involved and to share our experience and see how we can help in the development of your project. So I'm just going to give you a bit of background about Yorkshire Sculpture International for those that don't already know. It's a collaborative project between the Henry Moore Institute, Leeds Art Gallery, the Hepworth Wakefield and Yorkshire Sculpture Park. And it draws on the expertise and collections of these four world-leading organisations with sculpture at their core. And we work collectively to share with the wide public the deep-rooted history of sculpture in Yorkshire, making this inheritance relevant to the present day. As you probably know, Yorkshire is well known as a birthplace and inspiration of world-renowned sculptors, including Barbara Hepworth and Henry Moore. These artists and many others since have lived and worked here and still do. This unique partnership works collaboratively to increase access to and engagement with sculpture. We contribute to placemaking and civic pride. And the four galleries have created an international destination for sculpture to be experienced. We're dedicated to making a difference to the creative lives and well-being of people in Yorkshire through sculpture and supporting a diverse range of artists in Yorkshire. The first Sculpture International Festival took place in summer 2019, and it featured exhibitions, international commissions, events and learning programmes, with sculpture in its broadest form on display across the four galleries and outdoors in Leeds and Wakefield. We were delighted to work with Phila de Barlow as our promoter for the festival. She came up with this really compelling statement that sculpture is the most anthropological of the art forms. We explored sculpture with people of all ages, connecting them with the materials and processes used in making sculpture today and showing how sculpture can be found all around us. And we have to say thank you to, of course, to our major funders and partners, which included Arts Council England through their National Lottery Funded Ambitions for Excellence grant, 2023, Wakefield Council, Leeds Beckett University, University of Leeds, Paul Hamlyn Foundation and Freelands Foundation. The festival in 2019 reached over 1 million people and included a work of 77 artists and 27 new commissions. There were 18 international artists, including major public realm sculpture commissions by Aisha Erkman, Tara Katui and Huma Baba. We featured 39 artists from Yorkshire and 20 artists from across the UK. Altogether, 47,000 people participated in 923 events, and the engagement programme ran from September 2018 in the lead up to the festival in summer 2019. The festival contributed £8.3 million to the economy in Yorkshire and we featured in 620 press features, which reached 2 billion people. So our engagement work with sculpture as the focus took place throughout the year. As I mentioned, we worked with local communities, teachers and schools, FE colleges and universities. and we actively supported artists working in sculpture who are based in Yorkshire as part of the Sculpture Network and through our commissioning and engagement programme. Last year, we realised a summer programme in 2021, which featured new commissions across the 4 partner galleries, featuring Akila Bertram from Leeds, Clay Bowler from Slough, Wando Obese from Todmorden, and Ashley Holmes from Sheffield. And there were also international co-commissions by Shazad Darwood from London and Ariel Rene Jackson from Austin in Texas. So there you can see we're also still keeping our Yorkshire and international focus. YSI is a rare model as a partnership of these 4 organisations collaborating together to great effect in an exemplary way to secure the place of West Yorkshire as a hub for sculpture in the 21st century, building on the legacy of Hepworth and Moore, and strengthening the 4 distinct partner organisations. We draw on the expertise and collections of these organisations with sculpture at their core, and share with a wide public the deep-rooted history of sculpture and the sculptors based here, making their inheritance relevant to the present day. And we achieve this through enhancing engagement with sculpture in Yorkshire, contributing to placemaking and civic pride, putting Yorkshire on the international map as a world-leading centre for sculpture, and ensuring that the partners have more public impact together than they would on their own. We're now working towards our next festival in 2024, and to Yorkshire becoming internationally recognised for the measurable difference it has made to the creative lives and well-being of people in Yorkshire through sculpture. We're working towards inspiring young people and contributing to the education of every school child in West Yorkshire, contributing to the environment of towns and cities through significant sculpture commissions, attracting and retaining a diverse range of artists in West Yorkshire. That's the background of what we're doing now.
Great.
And also, I mean, I haven't talked about the Sculpture Network, which is a key project for us right now that we developed in 2020 during COVID. We realised that we really wanted to work with sculptors, but we had to do this not in a physical way through doing workshops, which we were originally planning to do, but we wanted to go work online. So we had a series of Zoom conversations with 20 artists. We did an open call, and every other week, over a period of about 4 months, we met with these artists, got to know and also introduced their practice to international artists and curators. And we've continued to work to those artists today, and we've just selected the artists for the 2022 Sculpture Network. So that's a key part of our programme this year, is working with 25 artists from across Yorkshire to develop their practice and become a really supportive environment for those artists. We also have workshops, whether they're making workshops, writing workshops, and all of those artists get to meet with the curators from across the partnership galleries as well. So you can see from 2021 that did lead into programming that took place in the summer, featuring artists from the Sculpture Network in 2020. Clay Bowler and Wando Obese were both part of our Sculpture Network. So it's really lovely to see those threads that come through from the network into the galleries programming.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing. And I think, as you touched upon, like, Yorkshire's got such an incredible history of, you know, producing sculptors, producing artists in general as well, but like so many great sculptors, and there's such a strong presence of kind of sculptural institutions in Yorkshire, and it's really nice that that is continuing on into, like, you know, the emerging artists, and that they're feeling very supported, but also, you know, that's leading to commission opportunities, because it's, you know, it's hard making work that's often, you know, mammoth in scale, and, you know, where do you keep these things? So then that's really, really great. I mean, to hear you talk about how it's reaching 2 billion people is just, you know, it's incredible, really. And I guess one question I had for you, Jane, is where do you begin? How do you set about when, you know, you've got 2024 as the next one? How do you select those artists for the commission? Where do you start? There's so many great sculptors.
I guess, well, we're really blessed by having some incredible curators across the partner galleries. So we do meet regularly as curators to think about the concept, to talk about artists that we're interested in working with. And that's the really rare thing about this unique model, is everyone's active, and we have this forum where we can talk about ideas we're interested in, we want to work towards, shows we've seen, artists we're interested in, and then we can use that kind of collaborative expertise and all the international reach of connections of the curators to work with to really commission the most ambitious artists who are appropriate for the programme. So it comes from the curators, but also within the curators, we have engagement curators too across the partnership as well. So Ella in her role is very much part of those meetings, and we see how we work with engagement, connected with curatorial as really embedded with each other. And one of the commissions for 2019 was with Tara Katui, and he worked with artists from Yorkshire as activators within his project. So when we're going forward for 2024, we definitely see how engagement is embedded within those artist commissions as well, side by side.
That's really great. So Ella, so you're engagement curator, hello, at Yorkshire Sculpture International. Can you talk a bit about your work and I suppose how you respond to the programme and the commissioning?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question, because that's something we're really keen to do, is embedding, as Jane said, embed engagement within that curatorial programme. And so I guess as an overview of what I do, I kind of look after our projects that work with the public or work with different kind of community groups. And that can include everyone from early career artists to teachers, schools, young people, local, and then kind of local communities of Yorkshire. So that kind of varies depending on where we're working, but often people who might have kind of faced barriers to accessing the kind of rich breadth of sculpture that is here. So kind of bringing people to our partnership galleries as much as possible. So one of my most recent projects that we've been working on are with, so you asked how we kind of connect it to the programme. So for example, Shahzad Dawood is a Bangladeshi artist based in London, but a lot of his most recent project is called A Concert from Bangladesh. So we worked with Kushi Dil, Happy Hearts, you have to do that, which is a Bangladeshi women's group based in Beeston, which is South Leeds. And we worked really closely with them to develop the project with an artist called Tamina Begum. And then we also offered Tamina some professional development with Shahzad. Tamina led the Q&A with Shahzad when we screened the film. Tamina brought 70 of her friends, family, extended community from Beeston to the screening at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. So we really try and link up as much as possible. And a kind of huge thing in that is listening. So listening to what Tamina and the group wanted. So for example, at Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and also shout out to Helen Phoebe, who also really developed that partnership and made loads of really exciting things happen at Yorkshire Sculpture Park, in terms of they worked with the cafe there to provide traditional Bangladeshi snacks to make it feel really thought about, and just little things like providing seating, making sure you're really just communicating as much as possible, I guess. And yeah, but linking it in is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like, I mean, I've done little bits of work with socially engaged projects or work in the community, and I always leave it such a fulfilling thing to do as well, to engage with those people, and people who otherwise maybe wouldn't engage with contemporary art. I think they're so much, they can get so much out of it, and I think it's just such a rewarding thing, I think, when that happens, when you can meaningfully connect people that perhaps otherwise wouldn't even know that these things are happening.
It's also super educational. I've learned so much about Bangladeshi culture over the last 6 months. It's really amazing, and also continuing that relationship with Tamina, I think, is really important to the work that we do with engagement. Is it's not, like you were talking about earlier, not kind of blooming and disappearing, and carrying on those relationships as much as possible, and kind of following the careers of artists like Tamina, who then go on to achieve such amazing things and kind of cross promote. And we also recently showed the sculpture that this group made at Leeds Art Gallery in Central Court, which is just this really incredible experience, in that we were going back to the gallery that at one point didn't feel like it was for them, their words, not mine, and then owning that space and putting the sculpture that they've made smack bang in the middle of it. And also our wonderful colleague Sarah, who isn't here, but she makes films, so she made this really great film of the project. So that's just a really great legacy thing, because I think sometimes it's a bit hard to show what engagement programs kind of look like. So yeah, getting Sarah to capture it. We then showed the film in the gallery as well. So yeah, that was a nice project and linked really closely with the program.
There was also something, Ella, you were mentioning about work with, but there was a connection made between Tamina and Shazad. So we had a public talks program that took place at Hypha Picture House, which was on location at City Varieties in Leeds because they're closed for refurbishment. But connecting in Tamina with Shazad was really great. So they had Tamina had some professional development mentoring session with Shazad, but she was also on a platform with Shazad to talk about the work from her experience, and he could talk from his experience. So that's really nice. Again, you've got that international and local connectivity, which I think we do so well.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself. Like having professional development is so valuable, and yeah, connecting yourself with artists who are established and have a breadth of different experiences is second to none, really. Are there any community groups that you haven't worked with, or that you're like really want to work with, that you kind of haven't had a chance to yet, or are there any groups that haven't
That's such a hard question. I just don't know if it's like possible to work with it. Like that's probably what makes my brain explode on a day-to-day basis. I'm like, how do we reach as many people, because there's just so many people in Yorkshire who we want to reach, but I guess we just kind of keep trying to kind of acknowledge and lift up people who are already working. So we kind of try and, in terms of, I guess it's hard to say who we would want to work with, because it kind of depends on the program and depends on depends on the program really. But in terms of how we then reach those audiences, I guess it's kind of recognizing that there are experts out there doing things already. So there's probably, for example, Tamina was working as an artist in Beeston with the Cushy Dill group for years before we interacted with them, so then she can continue that work, she can kind of continue those threads. So it's just kind of
I was just thinking, why didn't you mention a little bit about how you worked in Wakefield with Nova and with Rycroft, maybe as another example?
Yeah, that's a great example actually of how to, because we're so aware as a festival, by nature we bloom and disappear in some ways, so we're really conscious of that and try and work with that as a strength. So we Jane mentioned Nova, which is this brilliant organisation in Wakefield. It's kind of focused on third sector, so charities and CSEs, people working, these kind of experts that are working in the communities already, and then we tie in and work in partnership with them, and then they like link us out to what they call community anchor organisations. So it means we can work with groups that have maybe potentially a bit more infrastructure, but then it's this kind of like seeding, spidering out approach. So Nova connected us to Rycroft Leisure Centre, which has a youth club. So we worked with them on a sculpture project where we took a group of like 30 young people to all of our partnership organisations. We then did some sculpture workshops, and then we showed those sculptures in, actually, funnily enough, a meanwhile used space in a shopping centre in the centre of Wakefield. So then you kind of get this place that is geographically cut off, and this group of people who might not have ever been to the institutions and the cultural places that the cultural institutions that we're taking them to, not only going to visit, but then making their own work and then doing their own exhibitions. So it's kind of showing that as a pathway. So that was a brilliant project, and that was as part of Art Walk, which is this the last Wednesday, I think, in each month. They link up all of the artist-led spaces in the city so that you go and tour it. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, I think the project space in a shopping centre is an emerging model that I think is really great. I think in terms of the sorts of people that go to shopping centres that maybe wouldn't go to a contemporary institution is really great. I love that. Like we've got turf projects not that far away in Croydon, and they do amazing work, and I think it's just a really nice model.
Turf's brilliant. Yeah, a couple of Leeds artists have showed at Turf.
There you go, plug.
Good link.
Yeah.
Josh, also that brings us, you were just saying about the showing work outside of the galleries, which is what I really love about what the festival did, is that taking work outdoors into public realm. I mean, We worked with Damien Hirst, who you know has a connection to Leeds because he studied at Leeds College of Art, as did Barbara Hepworth, as did Henry Moore, and just bringing his work into Leeds city centre, into the really busy high street on Briggate, and also into a glorious Victorian shopping arcade was phenomenal. To see people taking their lunch break, having maybe sitting on the plinth, but just looking at the work and kind of amazed at it. But I do think that some people perhaps wouldn't normally come into gallery spaces. Hopefully they'll be encouraged to come in, because we showed Damien Hirst also at Yorkshire Sculpture Park outdoors, and inside Leeds Art Gallery is where there is still a sculpture, a sculpture of sheep still in place. But yeah, so it was the impact of that which was really astounding, and that's obviously how you reach so many visitor figures, and it gets great coverage as well. But that was a particular story about Damien Hirst as well, being from Leeds as well, and having his formative years spent here. But yeah, it was really thrilling to see the response of people to something, an intervention in the public realm that just appeared overnight, you could say. And we did work in Wakefield. We worked really closely with the FE College there, Wakefield College, around the corner from where Huma Baba's sculpture was installed. In fact, talking about sort of embedding and working with communities, we also created pathways for students in FE colleges to think about sculpture as being a potential on art as a career option, and kind of being proud of where they're from and the artists that are from where they're from, what they've achieved. And we took students down from the FE College in Wakefield to where Huma sculpture was being made, to the fabrication centre. I went on a journey to see it before it went up as well, and that was a kind of a whole part of the whole engagement process before the sculpture was installed. But yeah, it's just kind of really nice that they had sort of behind the scenes, but that hopefully, I know at least one of those students has gone on to become to study sculpture at university. So
yay, good. Yeah, exactly. More of that. No, it's really, really important. And you touched on the sculpture network as well, which I think is great. And you are seeing like artists who have, I mean, not that it's exclusively down to the sculpture network, but I'm sure it's playing a huge part. Like artists such as Emmy Alroy, who are now, kind of blowing up and like getting shows, across the UK institutionally. So yeah, it's good. It's really good. It's really nice to see.
All us. No.
No, but you're like, it's a huge platform. And you do great work, so I'm sure it absolutely has an impact.
I mean, it was such a moment on. Oh, sorry, Jane.
No, you go, Ella, and then I'll speak. You go.
It was just it's definitely not. It plays a part. It's definitely not all down to us, but it's such a moment the other night. So like last Thursday or something, we had the opening of Sheila Hicks, and we could see Emmy's installation at Hepworth Wakefield, and Ro Robertson, who also worked with us as an associate artist in 2019, and then in various different ways has had their work acquired by the collection. Clay Bowler as well. No, that's a Leeds Art Gallery. But then over in Leeds Art Gallery, we've got Jill McKnight showing, having a major commission in the main galleries alongside Clay Bowler, and it really is. It's such an exciting time, and it happens like over time, and then you have these moments where you're like, these are all of these people that we've supported, and Megan in the past, not just me, but supported over time to then have these opportunities, that kind of get these opportunities, and it's so brilliant to be able to kind of celebrate that. Yeah.
Also, you just mentioned about collections is important too, because a number of the artists have gone on to be acquired by the collections here are really phenomenal. So I'm joining you here from Leeds today, and Ella's in Leeds today as well. But, we work across Leeds and Wakefield, but the fact that the galleries have their potential to collect these works for the future, take care of them and show them again is really important too. So that's all part of the ecology.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And yeah, even just from a practical, sense, just to have work out of the studio and, somewhere else is really nice. And just, have a bit more space in the studio, I think is great. But like to be in a collection is the dream. That's like really, really important. So that's great. So I guess building on that, I suppose, do you guys have any advice maybe for emerging sculptors in terms of how to create opportunities for themselves? I mean, obviously there's open calls such as the Sculpture Network, but any advice on opportunities?
Should I go? Do you want to go?
You go first. You go.
Well, I might move to Yorkshire, but I'm joking. I think it's just keep it's hard, isn't it? Because it's sometimes a bit intangible. that kind of like getting out and talking to people, making connections, making relationships, making partnerships. But I think there is that, and it's kind of understanding the power within your own network, and like mapping that. And it's not necessarily, I think it's kind of positive networking. I always talk about this kind of like positive networking, because I think networking has a bit of a reputation for being maybe not the most positive thing, or a bit kind of nepotistic or something. But I think there's such power in who you know and your peers and the people making work alongside you, and there's power in kind of collective action in that sense. But I think I come from a DIY background, so I've still got that mindset of kind of doing something together to make an impact, like starting your own art-led space and things like that. But I really like that's a lot harder in somewhere like London, but that's a pathway that I think is really interesting. Yeah, and then there's logistical things like fundraising, open calls, representation, all of these things. Jane, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I've just come back from an amazing week in the Netherlands doing lots of studio visits and visiting institutions, but I would just say continue, just keep making,
Yeah.
implementing. And I do reach out to curators to say, if you got half an hour, I'd love to get your feedback, because I think people are interested for sure. We've supported artists on their developing your creative practice with a letter of support for the artists to work with. But obviously I know that those artists that have within their application, but they've reached out to different curators across the country, and people are up for chats. I think it's, if they're too busy, they're too busy. But if you just ask, if you can but ask, make that connection, if you feel that it's relevant. But yeah, talking with your peers about work as well is really important too. So I think studio visit up for it. Or if you don't have a studio, just keeping those. Just keep talking about your practice. Maybe writing as well is important. We did quite a few sessions with Corridor 8, Laura Eggleton. So she worked with our Sculpture Network artists and other artists in Yorkshire to support them in writing their statements, because I think that's really important. What's the window when people, before we met, Josh, I was immediately on your website, which looks great, just to find out some background, but the images are really strong. It's clear. Make it easy for people, and just by having that sort of statement about your intent is really useful. So yeah, I think how you present yourself is important.
And I think as well, as I say, I think there's like a balance between the practical things, like signing up to everything to find out about the free workshops or the opportunities or things like that. I think there's a definite balance between respecting and like looking after yourself, because loads of this is like it's kind of translated as unpaid work, and there's kind of respecting those boundaries, but then it's kind of alongside that when it feels okay and the energy's there to like seed as many things as possible and like irons in the fire for everything at the wall, and then things eventually start sticking. So having like within a week having that one coffee or visiting that one show and asking to meet the curator and having a studio visit, eventually the things, it kind of happens, but I don't think there's any kind of one way. It's like seed everything and then see what
I agree. A momentum of sort of things happening, and I do think it's great to just as you say, like just ask the question really, if do they want to come to the studio, or put your work out there really, because it ultimately if they say no, and you've not benefited, like nothing's changed, so you might as well kind of put things out there. And I think certainly for myself, every opportunity I've ever got has kind of come about through me reaching, me creating opportunities for myself through applying for things. It's very rare that someone will come to you completely unaided and be like, I want to put your work in a show or whatever. It's much more about, facilitating these things and kind of making things happen.
And I think that's something that YSI, Yorkshire Sculpture International, tries really hard to do, is kind of create that environment for collaboration and facilitate the moment where that happens, or like where a curator finds out about an artist. Or I think that's one of the intangible things that we try and do.
That's great. Okay, and so finally, I think to wrap this up, what are you allowed? So obviously 2024, next Yorkshire Sculpture International. Are you allowed to say anything about anything you're working on then, or are you allowed to say about what's up next for you guys in the coming months?
Well, I say we're working on the vision for the next festival in 2024, but I'm not going to say any more about that.
Okay.
But international and local will feature, of course. And right away, I mean, our main focus now is really sort of supporting the artists, on getting to know the artists and their work on the Sculpture Network over the coming months, and fundraising for future projects, which is obviously key, and making connections with people regionally and nationally, and seeing what work. I mean, that's kind of what we're mainly focused on. And Ella, is there anything else that we are doing?
No, I think you summed it up. On our website, we've got all of the artists from the past and the present Sculpture Network, and that's really lovely to look at. It's kind of building quite a big network there, nearly 50 artists. But yeah, you summed it up, Jane. Getting to know people, making relationships, building a vision, and then getting the money for it.
Great. Yeah, perfect note to end on, I think.